All right. So pet protection form. First screen. Any questions on this one? This is pretty standard, I guess.
I would change the language probably, but I don't know if we're supposed to give that feedback now. Probably not.
No, I'm
I would
taking
say
notes on everything.
ask the court to protect my pet or something simple like that.
Yeah.
Can we have the link to the PDF and the link to the interview
Yes.
in the channel?
Oh, let's see. The interview one's just going to be this one at the top, I assume, right?
It's not showing, is it?
I just stole it. Hang on. There we go. There's that. And then the PDF, I just changed it. Okay. All right, so after this comes to the first screen that kind of explains or is supposed to explain what the form is.
Is this your where is this language? I mean, we're not going to do language this morning, right?
Okay. Right. I don't know. I mean, we can cover anything and I can make the changes. I made this up. I looked on Mass Legal Help and I think there's maybe one sentence about the pet protection form that just explains that it's something that you can get.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Next then.
For if we could, never mind. You know what? Never mind. MVP,
Yeah, let's not
right?
do language
Cool.
this
Not
morning. Let's
language,
just do
sure.
the interview, right? And then we'll do
Yep.
language later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then first question, weeds out people who don't have a restraining order or haven't requested one. So it asks, you know, do you have a restraining order? Have you requested one? And then I just tried to list all of the different possible restraining orders that can have a pet protection order attached to them.
Okay, I think the list is helpful.
Yeah.
I think a challenge on this screen is that you have a compound question that's really far away from the buttons, the yes, no answers. So I would think about how to change that. Like you could use radio buttons that you could have it be checkboxes. I think, I don't know, or maybe it can be rephrased and eliminate one of the options if you don't think it's common. So I guess, Kate, that might be for you to be able to answer better.
Sorry, what was the question?
Well, I'm just noticing the compound question here. Do you currently have a restraining order or have you requested one? And I'm thinking
you can do this simultaneously with the request too.
It's just the thing is about the way the screen is presented. So first of all, it's a compound question. So it's you know, it's like, do you have this or do you have that? It's really two questions.
Yeah.
And that, yes, you can get but it's just the way the question is asked. And then Quentin's saying that maybe, there's two things. One, it's two questions in one. And the second thing is it's quite far away from the answers, the yes, no. So we need to maybe make it a statement at the top. You can get, you can ask the court for if you have one of these things. And then you could say, which of these do you already have? Maybe you don't want to limit it to that and a different type of restraining order. So there's various ways you could ask this so it's less confusing to the user.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems like a good thing for us to have some examples of in our style guide. I'm actually going to write that down as a thought.
So if they say no, they don't have anything, then it gives a kick out screen where they can either click here to go to like file 209A on mass access, or it gives the number to safe link in case they need to call anyone.
Where does the exit button go?
I believe the exit button just goes back to doc assemble. So
I think we might want to make that a part of the like MAVC. I mean, not the doc assembly line thing, but MAVC to, yeah.
Yeah,
Standard
that's a good
exit.
point. You shouldn't really have to configure that.
I think we should also probably have the escape button on this.
I made an issue
Okay.
for it, just, yeah.
Alright.
Oh, sorry,
You
go
made an
ahead.
issue about the exit button default. Is that what you just said, Michelle?
Escape.
Yeah, that just reminded me, we probably do want the escape button on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
The same one we have on the 209A.
Okay.
yeah, we should just be able to pull in that file and that dependency. I think it's in MAVC.
So Derek,
just-
do you understand, do you know how to do that? Or are you gonna just check with Michelle how to do that?
Yeah, I can.
I'll look first and see if I can do it, and then if not, I'll come begging for help.
Okay,
The
but you
209A does it.
you understand what Kate's saying, right?
Yeah, the because I know most like like providers or websites will
Mhm.
have a little escape button that goes to like Google or something else.
Yeah. So, and that's different from the exit that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like a project-wide solution that I
Okay.
guess you guys are, Quentin and Michelle, you're saying you don't have to worry about that. Derek doesn't have to worry about that,
Don't have
right?
to worry about the exit button
Yeah,
because I
okay.
think,
Okay.
yeah, we should use it globally.
All right, so next it asks for the user's name. This I'm gonna, Michelle, I'll link up with you to like figure out how to get rid of this because I know you gave me something, but it wasn't quite working. So
Okay,
this screen planning to get rid of.
sure, yeah, we can work on that.
And then kind of same here, still having trouble
Mhm.
like making it a person only. This is like another kick out question. Do you have any animals that need to be protected? Because obviously no animals means there's no reason to get this.
Do
I
you
need to-
think that, I'm not sure you need that, do you have any animals? Because you're here asking for it. I don't know that you need that extra question. I'm not
So
sure you
just-
would have come here if you didn't have any animals.
Okay.
Can we go back and see that again?
Yeah.
Yeah, so does this trigger like gathering the list? Because I think that if it's for
Yeah,
like a
maybe that's the
mechanical
purpose
fusion,
of it.
then yeah, it's just like you could set it to always true.
No, this isn't for gathering the list, I don't think. I'll have to double check. I think
mean,
this
would
was
they
just
be-
more of like a kick out question in case someone was here for the wrong reason, I guess.
Yeah, I would
I
take care
think
of
if-
it.
Yeah, if it was, I think if this is a kick out question, I think probably this being the first question would
Okay.
be a clearer move. I think as many kick out questions front loaded, and this is kind of the basic one, like, are you here for the right reason?
Yeah,
Okay. I put this one after getting the defendant's name because that would be who's listed on the
Sure.
restraining order. So like you can't get this if you want your neighbor to stop abusing your animal if you don't have a restraining order against
that's a
them.
good point. That's a good
That's fair
thought.
enough.
That's a good thought. Maybe we just need to think a little bit more about how,
Well, it's like, do you have any animals? Like, first of all, I don't know if it's needed because it does say this is like, there's a lot of explanation before this about it being a pet protection thing. Possibly on the page where you do the intro that says, this is for pet protection. You can say at the bottom, do you have an animal that needs protection? And then do a yes, no, and that's kind of combine those two screens.
the other thing you could do is when you're talking about when you list the restraining orders that you have that you're asking for, you could say who's the defendant in those restraining orders, and then you would have the name.
Okay.
I still think that the thought in here can be incorporated into some of the earlier questions. I totally get why you need the defendant's name, but I also think if we're explaining what the interview is for, I'm not sure we need to double check. But
Okay.
anyway, it's a rethink, but I think this is a little bit, I don't think this is quite the way we want to do it if we're going to do that.
But it's very thoughtful of you, I think, too. Sorry, keep going. I will not interrupt.
So this question changed when the like court locator question changed. So
Mhm.
before we weren't asking for an address because you don't need the address on this form.
Right.
So I don't know if there's a way to go back to the previous question or some form of the question where we get the courts
Mhm.
only.
I think I can help you get rid of this question in the same way that we
The other
Uh,
questions.
got
I
rid of
don't-
the, unless we need a
There's
cover.
a there's a really totally different and better way to do that. I think
Oh.
if you're going to say like copying the question, you don't have to do that because there's code that tells it. Let's go to the next screen and you can see what I mean. So if you click source, the top, it's looking at all matches, right? So if you define all matches to be empty, it won't try to define all matches, which requires looking up the address of the person who's filing.
That is what I was talking about. Yes.
Okay, because you said the same way you did it in the other form, which is you copied and changed the question.
The
It's a different
same way. The same way I will show him with the other question.
The other
that is
questions in
appearing
this
when he does
interview,
not
yeah.
intend it to appear. Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So then, I mean, for now, we can just pick a courthouse, I guess. Actually,
What are your thoughts on that, Kate? Do you think people will need help choosing their court?
They should know where they're filing the other case or where the other case is.
Yeah.
So it's really more like a respondent in this case too, anyway. So you might
Yeah,
want to
'cause
customize it anyway.
Yeah, because there's something else that they've already filed.
It's
that
also
already
like a
exists.
motion, right? I mean, if the case is already ongoing or
Right.
it's already in existence, so there is already a court.
Yeah,
you're
or you're
doing-
doing it at the same time, but yeah.
Mhm.
We might want to add something to the if statement, since that functionality, it sounds like, is common with motions and stuff. That says if they're the defendant or if I don't
It's an
know
existing
this is a
case.
motion, yeah, or something, yeah.
Yeah, it does sound like something we have to handle. I hate to have 4 versions of the same question.
We don't have to like.
There's
one
lots
we-
of ways to do it. You're
okay.
right. It could be conditional text.
Yeah, I think we wouldn't have
I think
4
you're right.
versions. I think
Every
you'd have
motion is going to have this
2
issues.
I think you want to have 2 versions, really.
We do. We have
We have
in-state
2
and
now.
out of state.
Oh, we do?
No, it's not in and out of state. It's we found a match and we didn't find a match because there could be more than one
Right.
reason
Oh,
for
I see.
not finding a match.
Then we add conditionals. Yeah.
Poor Kate. She said Wednesdays were difficult for her.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, let's keep
Okay,
going.
so I don't think Derek has to do anything in that. He's just gonna meet with Michelle on the length of all matches for now, and then we'll deal with the court question, right? Separately.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, the next question that comes up is getting the docket number. This is a basic question, but is there a way to disable the add another, because there would only be one docket number?
This one, I think, I don't know that
I thought we fixed this, so it doesn't do this.
I guess this is a
Can
restraining
you,
order.
can
There's
you
only
hit
one
the
document number.
source? Can you hit the source? And oh, I see. It's been triggered because probably are you using scroll down? Docket numbers 0. So
I mean, you could just replace that screen. The docket number is only like a convenience that we added for people. It doesn't get used in any internal code in any way.
I believe
So-
there's also a variable that can trigger hiding the add an item for a list collect, and we might consider that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we don't need to ask about multiple docket numbers either. I mean, in the question, it says if there's multiple docket numbers, and it's a bit confusing for people. If they see multiple docket numbers, they don't have multiple docket numbers in this interview.
Well, I have a couple thoughts for dealing with that, but I think that's a basic questions discussion that we might
Yeah.
have at another time. And
Yeah.
for now, I think, writing your own question, Quentin's probably right.
Yeah.
For now,
Okay.
writing your own question is probably the solution to that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it feels like one that's so small. It's just one field
Yeah.
Yeah.
that we don't really need to have ways
And
we can
Kate, are
customize
they,
it.
can
other than
can he
helping.
have the option of, I don't know my docket number in this?
Yeah, because you might be doing this at the same time as a initial complaint.
Right.
If we like the eviction moratorium, one, we can just
Take your car with it. It's okay. It's both of your books.
Let's keep going for now.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it starts to collect names and breeds of pets. So cat. And then it's just going to keep cycling through saying, these are the pets you've told us about so far. Do you have others you want to include? So I don't know. I picked this breed or this list of animal breeds because I found some like a regulation somewhere that defined what domesticated animals are.
Well done.
Okay, nice. Good research.
Wow.
Very impressive, Derek.
Could you put the link to that in the documentation in the repository?
I will double check. I think I did.
Okay. Wow.
Otherwise, I'll find it again. I have it in some notes somewhere.
Excellent.
But yeah, it was a huge list. I condensed like a couple of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say there are 3 animals in this. And then once they say no, it ends that, and then it's going to start to cycle through each pet and ask who the owners are. They can choose themselves, the defendant, both me and the defendant, or if it's someone else, they have the option to type a full name. So, I don't know.
This is nice. The only thing I would say, maybe I would change the show hide behavior here so that it doesn't show the free entry until someone chooses one of their choices. And then maybe also I would turn this to a drop down radio button because there's just 3 options.
Okay.
Can we go back a little bit?
Yep.
A couple to one of the other screens. This might fall under language, but I just noticed a typo there. To the one in the previous section screens.
Oh yeah, the do you have any? There are any.
Oh,
Yeah,
whoops. Yeah.
that one. I
And
noticed
then
that too.
maybe if as this list grows, it's hard to figure out what the yes and no buttons do for the same reason, because the question is so far away from the input that you interact with.
So
But maybe I'm not positive that's a problem, but
I could change the yes no to like add another pet or I'm done or something like that.
yeah, that would be a good
I
solution.
like this. Do you want, I mean, basically, are there any other animals you need to the order to protect?
Mhm.
Okay.
You could say something like that. And then I think you're okay with the yes, no, Quentin, because you're in the
You're in
group.
this gathering.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not positive it's a problem, but the typo is the main thing, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I have a couple thoughts. One is that I'm not sure it needs to be a table. It could just be a list of names like we've done in the
Yeah.
past.
That's
I
true.
think that's good
That would
too.
actually help as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So it could just be you've told
Because they
you've-
know what the breeds are, right? For their
Yeah.
they know their pets by their name, not by the breed.
right.
Mhm.
So you've
Yeah.
already told us about, unless you have like 2 Rexes, I suppose, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, we can consider that,
Did
but
you enjoy your cake last night? Or did you have
you've
cake?
already told us about Rex, Ivan, and Cookie.
Did you
for
enjoy your
example.
cake last night?
Yeah, I think
And
that's
the-
a good solution, Michelle.
And then I have 2 questions about
Hey, well, your parents finished it. That's
the collecting the list of owners for the pets.
Mhm.
One is possibly to collect the list of owners when you collect the name of the pet. Oh, I have 3 thoughts. One is possibly collect the list of owners when you collect the pet. So what pet, Rex, who owns Rex, right?
Mhm.
And then offer the drop down, not the drop down, the check boxes, not radio buttons, right? So that you can collect all the names of the people who own them all at once.
Okay.
Or just have one text box that collects all their names. Or,
All right, Michelle, I'm lost now. I'm not sure what you're
Yeah.
saying now.
Sorry.
so just different ways to collect the names that might be,
Right, so
More-
this, so one way is to, when you collect the name and breed, you collect the owner, right?
right, so you have check boxes, only the defendants. I don't understand how you'd pick, I didn't quite catch it, like, I didn't, how you'd say who owns the animals, like, do you have to add? Were
It
those
asks one
added
at a time.
earlier? Was De Niro added earlier and all that stuff?
It's the names of the parties of the case, I
Yeah.
think,
Parties
right?
of the case. Okay, so it is from a set number of names.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, check boxes. Then I would suggest when you ask about the pet. And that way saves.
And one
Let's
thing
see.
that was going to
Oh.
be kind of like a post MVP kind of thing would have been for like each owner that you add, it would similar to the affidavit of care and indigency. Or no, not that one.
We know which
No.
one you mean. Yeah.
Sorry. Wires across this morning. But every time you add a new owner, it would be added to the list of like owners that have been selected already, mentioned already.
But if you have all three there,
Mhm.
right? So if you have Max, Celine and whatever, then they just check off the ones that own the pet, and then you've got all of them, right?
Okay.
For that pet.
So
Does
I
that
think that
mesh with that, or am I not understanding something?
I think what Derek's saying is probably he was going to do something pretty similar to what you're saying, but it was going to be post MVP.
Oh, okay. Okay,
if
so
He wanted
this
to
would-
build the list dynamically, right? You wanted to add new people once someone added one of the new names, that they would be shown as an option on the next time. But maybe something you didn't think about that Michelle's saying is to change the input if we go to the next one. I mean, maybe it's the same thing I just said.
Like, sorry, go to the next one as an add another
Yeah,
pet.
click no, there's no more pets. We
Okay.
get prompted for saying who owns it. You're saying unless instead of saying someone already mentioned both of us or someone else. Oh, I see how this works. You don't, someone else gets, you never have that as a choice in the drop down.
Oh,
I see.
Right, that's why it's not conditional. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of showing these three choices, it would just be a checkbox me. But then then you have to integrate the someone else with that list.
so this isn't just.
So this is, I
all
think, a
these-
good MVP solution. but-
So it's other thing. In that case, at the top, you have already mentioned blah, 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 and blah, blah, like you did with the pets
You mean in the sub question, right?
in the sub question, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is, they're only parties in the case, right? It's not people you've mentioned. You don't mention yourself, right? So who owns Rex? I think radio buttons does make sense.
Well, check boxes.
Yeah, you could do check boxes, then you can have just two, right?
I mean, you could have, okay, so this is my question. One, in the past, I'm sorry, I'm very like distracted in the, I'm just having trouble concentrating. I did not see if you collected the list of the parties in the case.
You don't
So,
need
like-
to. You don't need to collect the list of the parties.
But if you do collect the list of parties in the case, then you can offer them as check boxes instead of adding them one at a time like this, right? Like if you already have a list of people, you can offer them as check boxes. If you
Right.
That's not what's going on though, Michelle. This is the list of people who own each pet. So one at a time is asking who owns this pet. We have no way to know the universe of people who could have ownership over the pet.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
And
that
we're
was
just
the question.
suggesting it's the people who are parties to the case, because otherwise you're not trying to get it from, it's either your pet or it's the other person's pet, or, I mean, you have some claim on it probably, right? Otherwise you're not going to be granted it. But it could belong to someone
Kid's
else.
pet.
Oh, right, the kid's pet is a
The
good
kid's
point.
pet, yeah,
Yeah.
is a big issue, yeah.
But it's not like you can get a list of all the owners and then say which of the owners has this pet. That would be really confusing, I think.
So yeah, so parties of the case, it's not
They're just likely potential owners, but you're not going to ever gather a list of all the potential owners.
That was my question earlier. So now the question is answered more thoroughly, it sounds, and more accurately to this particular thing. Right. So, yes. So I think just adding like you have already mentioned that blah, 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 and blah, 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 owner X, right?
No. you
No,
wouldn't do
that's not what
that.
happened. That's not what
No,
they've done.
once they have given a name, once they have given a name, then it mentions, then it says who you said already. Because it
No,
collect the
is
list
it
for
listing
rec.
every, are you trying to list all the owners at the end, or are you just trying to list who owns each pet?
So it's,
That's a good question for Derek.
I thought it's a cycle.
Wait, let's let Derek answer. Like at the end,
showed
how
it.
do you show this?
So here, I'll just run through this really quickly.
Okay.
So
There's the
so
form.
I'll
You can
just
look at the
assign people.
form as well that he's linked.
Yeah, that would work too.
Oh, maybe I'm misunderstanding. I thought you could have multiple people.
So
You can, but-
you can have multiple people. I don't know. Once it cycles through, the idea was to display a table one more time. Just say this is the animal, this is the breed, these are the owners.
You don't have to do anything with the owners. You just have to list. The owner is another characteristic of the animal. So you have animal, name, breed, owner, and you just list them. You don't do anything with that afterwards. And then you ask the court what you need, what you want for each of those animals. You ask the court to stop the defendant from harming or encumbering them. But you don't have to do anything with the owner apart from just list the owner as a characteristic of the animal.
So can you just have a text field where you list the people who own the pet as opposed to with the drop down?
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Good memory.
Because
Ella.
otherwise, I mean, because if multiple people can own them, then a radio button doesn't.
Well, it
That
works.
makes
It
sense.
actually, a radio button works well because you don't want them to have to type in the defendant's name every single time or their own name every single time. So the options are defendant, myself, and then somebody else who could be a child, could be a neighbor, could be an aunt, could be an uncle, could be one of 7 children. And so it's a somebody else. The dynamic part post MVP is then to collect more than, say you have 3 children and one child owns one pet, the 2 children own another pet, that
Can
kind
you
of thing.
can you click the back button for a sec?
Yep.
Can you hit the
That
drop?
sound, it sounds like the washing machine.
Because for me, when I read this, it sounded like either pick something in the drop down or write something in the text area
Mhm.
and not both. And so,
Right? Oh, I see your point.
like if you
That
if
if
the
you-
child owns it, but also your defendant owns it, you'll end up writing in the defendant and the child. But like if you can't do the drop down, like the defendant owns it and then write in there the child's name, right? Like,
Yeah, you could do, that's right. So if you don't make it conditional, then you can have the defendant and the child.
I mean, I do think checkboxes are a good solution once you have a full list of people. Derek, that was a blocker for you, and we said we could try something simpler for now, and that's why I think you went with this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It cool down.
But I'm confused by the way you were talking about gathering a list, Michelle. I don't think that's quite right, but I think if
I
we
think I
took-
got confused. It's
Okay.
okay. Yeah, ignore
But I
that.
agree with you about checkboxes are probably a good solution for not having to, because this becomes combinatorial, right? That if we do the drop down for someone already mentioned again,
Yeah.
if you had 5 people you told us about, then we're going to have, I don't think that's right, but something like 25 options, right? Eventually. So we wouldn't want to show it that way.
And also if the person does write in John Doe and custom name, then you've got one that says both
part of
me
it. Yeah,
and defendant and John Doe and custom name.
that's my
right.
point about the 25 options.
No, I mean, like, it doesn't even make sense because you never have John Doe by itself and you never have custom name by itself.
Yeah, so I think checkboxes are a good next step. I think this is fine because probably the 3 choices are the ones that are going to happen all the time. But maybe
And-
I'm wrong. But
And a kid. And a
and
kid.
the
and a
other-
kid is going to be another. Yeah.
And the other complication is that the second field is required and you have to make neither field required and then have a validation message.
Well, you just
A validation.
type something, Derek, so you can see. It is a little bit confusing how this works, but it's not.
So
working the way that you think.
delete John Doe and custom name, delete that and select something from the dropdown.
So it
Okay,
disables the
and then
other
it's
info.
not required anymore?
It's disabled, so you can't even interact with it. I think that is a little confusing. So the question is, without totally changing the way you gather the names, because I think this is fine for MVP, and I think we make an
Okay.
issue to think about how checkboxes work. Is there a way to change this on the margins to make it easier to use? That's what I would suggest, at least. I mean, I think you're totally right. Checkboxes are good because you can have, they're the most flexible, but then there's a lot more
Why
wrangling of the list.
can we not have, instead of this dropped, see, this somebody already mentioned, that's just, I don't know if
Phrasing
we
isn't
could
right, yeah.
improve that language, or what if we had those three, who owns cookie? Could we have two checkboxes being, I own cookie, defendant owns cookie, and then someone else, somebody else, and have it be where it works. I'm trying to think about this, how you disable someone else.
And the question about someone, it doesn't make it feel like I can write multiple kids' names down in that box. It makes it feel like I should write one
Yeah.
person's name.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
definitely.
Yeah, I think the labels don't make sense here, and I understand you took this as a model from something else that did, and maybe that wasn't clear either. So I know this was just the way that it was done in another form that you saw, which makes sense for why you would grab it.
Yeah.
I think the
Sorry.
checkboxes would be the best ultimate solution. I mean, if we think we can't fix this without that, then I would say,
Well, I mean, the thing is, we
let's go
don't
back
need
to an open
dynamic.
text box. Like,
I don't think we need dynamic checkboxes for MVP, but I just think instead of having a drop down, have those options as checkboxes. But what I'm not quite sure of is how that affects the someone else.
So, I mean, you could have checkboxes that have those names and then also have an other, I think, for checkboxes. And you can say like other people that own the pet, right? And then that could be, they could put in one name or multiple names, right?
Yeah,
I like
Does
that
that-
phrasing. That makes
yeah,
Okay.
I do too. I think that works really well.
so.
Yeah, and the checkboxes instead of radio buttons would be fine.
And then we don't really have to worry about the list gathering part probably, because actually that requires letting you list each name separately.
Yeah.
And we want to encourage people to use the other field to list as many other owners as there are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, that was a whole thing.
No, that's okay.
Do you have a good next step for that, Derek? Do you feel like you could take the list of checkboxes and combine it with the other if the other is checked?
I think so, yeah.
And then Caroline, you said, what would we do with the someone else box? I think it just only shows if they've checked other.
Yeah.
So we would add a show if to hide the someone else box. It would be replaced, the label would be replaced with other.
right. I was concerned about the whole validation required bit, but I think that the other would work. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they could all be yes, no checkboxes and other could be as well. And then you could have a show if field underneath.
Yeah, I guess the thing is just that for MVP, I think it's fine. I think the checkboxes are an easy fix with the other
Okay.
show if for the someone else. But I mean, for the user, of course, if it's the kid who owns all the pets, they're gonna have to keep typing in the kid. But I think that's a solution we deal with dynamically post MVP.
Okay.
Unless, and I can see Kate's busy, so I don't want to interrupt her. Unless, like, would the children be
listening.
enough as the owner? My
Say that
child?
again?
Would
The
just be
child?
writing my child be enough for saying
Yeah.
describing the owner?
I
You may
think
not
so.
have to say the name of the child.
I think that's fine.
That's a good solution,
If
Quentin.
you're just like my kids.
So we could add that as one of the choices.
Okay.
And then the
Yeah.
only other owner I can like really think of is, and this does come up in like my cases, are animals under breeding contracts.
Oh,
My like least favorite issue to deal with in divorces.
Right. Well, that might be somebody who's in your you're responsible. It's like the 18-year-old you're responsible for, but don't have custody of.
Right. Yeah, it's like the breeder technically has title to the dog,
Right,
and you have care and custody.
right.
So if you were filling out this form, because that was like something that I had a question on. If you're filling out this form, someone outside of the family owns the pet, but let's say that like the plaintiff is the one who has control over the pet or the responsibility.
Yeah.
Do you name the plaintiff as the person who's attached to this pet, or do you name the actual owner?
I think the owner, you need to name the owner because that's what it's asking for. The form's asking for the owner.
Okay.
And then, I mean, the form says, you know, name, type, and owner, and that's what you're putting. I mean, you're not doing anything with the owner, but it's just when it comes to court and the judge got to say, okay, well, who actually owns this animal? And if you're leaving home and you can't take the animals with you, or there's some dispute over who you can take the animals, then I think the judge needs to know who the owner is. And then it can come up, this whole breeding contract that Kate's talking about.
So you're saying basically just wait until the judge asks about it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, makes sense.
That's it, okay?
So you're gonna have, you know, defendant, me, my kids, and other, and then the other is gonna control the show if for the other person who owns the other owner. Yeah.
If you need some help combining it, that name from the checklist and the other option, just let me know. We have to help you with that. You should get stuck on it.
Okay.
Yeah, don't spend half an hour.
Throws it all in another table just to double check. I can't get no button to work. You know, if they say it's not correct, I don't know if we should be giving people an option to like either edit or go back
This is
and
your
start
review
over.
screen, yeah.
Can you click
But
the
this would be
source
the
button so we
recording.
can see how this is generated there? Okay, so there is a way to get that. I'll link you to it, okay? Which I think you'll probably find relatively straightforward to use. It's under.
Quentin, that is a review screen, right?
Well, I'm gonna link him to the table option. The table,
Oh, right, of course.
which also
yeah.
lets you
That's
edit.
not, it's a way to review, but it's not your review screens. Yeah.
Do we want me to create a style for the tables that doesn't alternate colors?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a
I
good
think it
question.
wouldn't take that long.
I don't know if we ultimately don't want it to alternate colors. It does help
Okay.
readability. I think that's
For
why
some
it's
people, find it harder.
Who finds it harder?
At least one of my friends, and also one of the women who was on the project earlier, one of the woman from India.
You mean
Um,
you mean having them all be the same color is easier to read than alternating colors?
Yep, she was having trouble with the testing stuff. She was trying to help with the testing stuff and was having trouble specifically because things alternated colors. He's low vision and it confused her eyes. So I don't know, but
She might have problems with it might be the colors and it might be the fact that it's a
Lack of
table.
contrast. Oh,
Yeah, it might be something like that because typically low literate people have difficulty with tables to begin with. So you try not to use tables unless you absolutely have to. And the colors help in terms of research and studies, colors help because it's with eye tracking. It helps people keep people on the same row.
okay, sure.
So I'm not
Yeah.
sure it would be given everything else that you need to do, I'm not sure it would make sense to do that.
Okay, sure.
Unless we had some research that pushed it, but
I mean, it could
I mean,
it
it
could be a
sounds-
thing that people just have always done forever, but like in the 90s when I was working in a credit union, like,
I'm-
you know,
I mean, it sounds like
accountants
the
have
whole
used
thing
alternating
about
colors
the-
forever.
you know, the color gradient thing that I have on Mass Legal Help, he's done a lot of research on color and readability and eye
that's
track.
what they found, then yeah.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I would go with the research, and I
So,
bet
I mean,
people
it
who've had
does
to deal
make
with
sense
have
that-
had to deal with it before. So.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
they know what they're getting into.
but
kind
of course you've found two people who confound the
Yeah,
research.
well, that's, no, I'm glad there's research. If there's research, like, it sounds like thorough research has been done. So never mind, we can move on. It's a review. We'll carry on.
So then once that's done, this is the part which asks which pets you want covered by a protection order. So you can select those, and then separately it asks which ones you want possession of. And
looks
it's
good.
all just check boxes.
I would bold the protection order. I would say, I would bold protection order and possession.
So
or
can I
something,
just,
that's all.
first, the thing is, don't you ask, isn't your first question is which pets do you want included? So they actively have to put effort into including them. I'm not sure, if you don't pick them, does that mean that they're no longer, I mean, this is a little bit different from contact and custody, because presumably all of them, you want to order the defendant not to abuse any of the ones that you've listed. So all of them are going to be in the protection order. Really, it's only possession, care, and control of that you need to ask about.
Is that true, Kate?
Okay, so number 1 is like an always, basically.
Right? You're not going to list them if you don't want them in the order.
Presumably, yeah.
So I would just ask the question about the possession. You could say, here are the animals, these are all the animals, which is kind of what you just said in the previous question with the table. But, you're asking the court to order defendant not to abuse, threaten, blah, 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 these animals. Which of these animals do you need the order to give you possession and control of? Something like that.
Mhm.
That sounds good.
Well, I mean, okay, so my question there would be, would there be a situation where maybe, the plaintiff is not worried about the defendant abusing the animals at all. They just want custody over them. Like, they don't have concerns that he's going to start kicking the dogs.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing is, maybe we can change the language, because the protection order gives them custody. So if they're included in so the question is that, so maybe what your question, I get what you're saying, but I guess what we're trying to say is, you don't need to ask the order to protect them from the defendant. You just need custody of the child, of the pet. Right? That's what you're saying. But the thing is, the protection, or the way the language is now, the protection order is what gives you custody. So they're all going to be included in the protection order.
So
So
the kind
maybe
of
we
the
need to
earlier
think about-
language has to change to say, do you want protection or ownership type of thing? Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
I'm wondering if it doesn't hurt to have the court order the defendant not to abuse the animal.
It's a good point. It does seem like something you would just probably always want to order. And because the form is so, I feel like we can get away with that. Get away is the wrong phrase, but the way the form is written, it just has these big empty boxes where you list a whole bunch of things. You don't have to say specifically what most of them are. I feel like that would be very safe for us just to assume that if they even want them on the form, that it would fill in.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, is specifically asked, this is where Derek's got this. He's got these two questions at the bottom one box is, order the defendant not to hurt my animal, and order that I have possession of these animals.
Right. But I'm just seeing how long that list of things are. That's why I'm thinking there's some ambiguity. But I get your point, though. You do have to choose which falls in which bucket.
The thing that this does bring up for me additionally is that if at the beginning of the form it says, this is for you to get protection for your pets from harm, right? Like, protect your pets from harm from the defendant.
Mm-hmm.
People who do just want to own the pet may go, oh, that's not what I want to do. So if we're concerned about that, that may be something to address in the language.
In the beginning, yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the intro, you're saying, to make sure they know all the
In
choices.
the intro and in the description of the form on the site, and
So instead of
Um,
saying protect my pet, protect or get possession of my pet.
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that. And then if the person doesn't want to get protection, if they are alarmed by the idea of saying, you know, this, I don't want this person to abuse the pet, and on the form it says, order this person to not abuse the pet, if that's what they were trying to avoid,
right.
I don't know how often that comes up, so I don't have like the perspective of the context. But if that is a concern, then I think they would find that concerning, right? If that's what they're trying to avoid doing.
Well, a solution that we've done on the other form, which I was saying I think maybe we didn't need, but maybe that's wrong. You're making some good points there. We could just have a pre-checked box.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking is,
But
if you,
I mean, I guess the question is like, are people going to be asking for different pets to be protected? Like making them say pet by pet which ones they want protected versus care and
I don't
control
think
over
so.
of. They might want to only get possession of certain pets that they like, okay, I have a good reason to say it's my pet.
right,
I doubt they're going to want to go pet by pet for which ones are protected.
Do we, I mean, it could also be on the pet iteration, like the pet page that says, you know, for this pet, do you want possession, ownership
be.
checkboxes?
Yeah, I mean, actually, but I think I like this linear style of saying, okay, what are the
That's true.
pets? Who owns them? What protections
That's
do you
true.
want? I think it's giving a little less cognitive load on the user. But you're right, that's a simple way to do it.
I would say
Especially if
that,
you end up wanting to protect all the pets.
and I would say that like, if you don't want to own the horse, but you still want to get it protected from abuse, like I'd want to be able to do that separately.
well, yeah, I think that's
Sure.
definitely, I think we do need to definitely separate them. The issue is the given possession, care, and control of the following animals. And sometimes one of the things that this can involve is, say it's a horse. You can't take the horse with you, but you want to be able to go back to the farm and ride the horse and feed the horse and do whatever you need to do. But you're not living at the farm. I mean, that does happen.
I can show you what the language that's
Trust Caroline to come up with the farm scenario.
Yeah.
I don't know if that it's perfect, but I can show
So
you the way we solve this.
I had
the-
DV survivors
Wait.
who had that very issue when I was living in Vermont. So it's
Yeah.
we
What
have
were you
this
saying, Quentin?
text. We have this text in the Washington DV
Washington.
form that I'm
Oh
working
yeah,
on.
let's look at Washington.
And this was done by our SME, who's done a lot of protective orders in Washington. So it's not exactly the same, but and it's that one is taking a more straightforward approach to all the forms really. So
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen for a second, if that's all right, Derek. And the only thing
You
is
have
there's so many
to-
annoying. I think I have a way to load. I'm sharing the wrong. Hold on. Let me. How do I open my answers?
Is this
Because I didn't get prompted to.
Spanish? For some reason.
Let me see if I can get to the place where I have my saved answers. Why don't I see that choice? Sorry. Maybe by the time I get there, I would have already gotten to the click next to show it to you. But
You realize, I think this link you gave us is in the framework is in Spanish. Is that right?
Also have to log in, and I definitely don't have an account, but
I'm sorry. I'll give you a different link. I think this one should work better. The framework was in Spanish. That's interesting.
Mine is.
I know
Maybe
we're
you
experimenting
got
with
the
translating
language
this.
set to
Interviews
Spanish.
in English, but the framework's in Spanish. So I'm clicking siguiente to, go next.
They're experimenting with translating it. And
Oh.
I don't know why it's doing that though. I think if I go to the LHI URL I just shared you, I should be able to load my saved answer, which will be faster also. Yes.
Okay. Oh, good. All right.
Oops. So that'll help a little bit. I
This is
saved
parenting plan?
answers. They're compatible,
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Right.
but I should save it within the name anyway.
Derek, I know this, it always ends up being kind of more than you expect. Like things end up spiraling in ways that you don't expect them to. This has happened, you know,
I've
on
seen
every
some of the other
interview.
ones.
So
I know.
Yeah.
this is not special. Okay. I just want you to know you're not alone.
But Derek,
Okay,
you're
okay.
one of the few people who's actually gone and done some research. I mean, I have to tell you, I'm so impressed with your list of animals and some of this other stuff you've done. It's not, there are other people who've done it, but I would say it's not typical. So that's pretty amazing. A lot what you've done so
It
far.
is.
And also you're
wouldn't
doing it
be
on your
capable.
own, which is incredible. So yeah.
The
Yeah.
problem is I don't have a partner to keep me on task.
Well, you've done a great job so far. This is, and the things that we've come up with so far, you can see is nobody agrees 100% on it. So it's not like we can expect you to figure it out on your own with no, real expertise when you've got Michelle, Quentin, and me all giving you different answers for how it
That's
should
right.
be.
True. Plenty of very enthusiastic cooks.
Quentin, are we doing pets or are we just doing children?
Well, I realized that the pet stuff is totally different, but I think the example I was thinking of is
Yeah, I see.
really relevant
Oh, I
to.
see. The pets
I have
is
to add all
actually- I
these
see.
stupid jurisdiction questions now. Hold
Oh
on.
gosh.
Always lived with, always lived in Washington State. Yeah. I'll save an
like-
answer so the next time I want to show this to you, I can
Yeah.
jump around.
I really like that the text is read until the question is answered. I really like that. I have to think about that because that's really, this form is incredibly long.
Mhm.
Well,
Well,
it's the
so is
DBPO.
ours. Remember, this is
It's
their-
the same.
This is their 209A.
Okay, you need the sex. of the-
Genders. So yeah, the red is only goes so far. Helpfulness.
That's true. That's true.
It's bold. It's easier to read. Let me see. Oh, I only have one child, so this isn't helpful either. Okay, let me add another child.
Yeah. And you can bounce back and forth in this way. This is amazing.
There's some things about hot dogs that are nice. I think that this is
I've heard
Yeah.
the downsides as well. So for sure, in the doc assemble channels, I never hear the upsides. So
I mean, hot dogs has been around a lot longer than Doc Assemble. So they've come up,
For
they
sure.
do all kinds of incredible scripting and stuff like that.
yeah.
So
yeah.
there is a lot of logic that you can do in hot dogs.
this
But
is
it's not
basically
as easy as Doc Assemble. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
to do the logic to control
Yeah.
things. Yeah, when you want, because it has one way of doing things. And then I think this is free navigation. It's an easy way to edit stuff, but it's
Yeah.
confusing to someone who's not familiar with the interface. It's more of an expert
Mm.
interface for people.
Mhm.
Okay,
This is a
is
linear one.
this where we want to, is this where we want to be?
I was like, oh, there's a pet protection, but it's so simple. It's just list the pet. But this, I'm going to uncheck this. So you can, this is the pet. You just say, give me full custody and control of pets. I think we simplified it to that. Even though there's more options on the form. But this is really what I was thinking of, this choice where you get to say all, some, or none.
Mhm. I
With
love
the-
that question about Roger has to stay away from places where pets might go. That's really good.
Stay away from the vet.
That's
Well,
part of
and
the
parks?
Washington State form. Yeah, you get to say
That's funny.
specific things.
Yeah.
This is right
Um,
from the form.
So maybe the all, some, or none, you could have us show if, but I mean, I think for MVP, just having those lists is, I think maybe we could make a stretch goal of like all, some, or none, and it'd just be all or some, right? And then you get the list to pick from. But for MVP, just having those lists there seems sufficient, right?
Yeah, I think that's quite right. So I think it's good to make an issue and think about like what's the best interface. I don't think that's the best one, the one that it has right now because of the common
Mhm.
uses, but it's totally releasable.
And
Okay.
also, I think it's if we say, and the language is include in the order, and what we don't mean include in the order, we mean protect from all these bad things, right? So those are the
Yes,
The-
change the
I mean,
language
you
so
kind
it's
of went off on
reflecting it,
this
right?
because you wouldn't include the pet in the order in the beginning if you didn't want them included in the order. However, you may not need the order to say defendant will not abuse, encumber, transfer, bloody blah.
So like, I think the language you would ultimately go for, yeah, Carolyn, that we have to fix that. So maybe can condense it. So it's not the full exact list, but maybe the full exact list is the best way to start
I
for now.
think you kind of, well, it's
Yeah.
like abuse and then transfer is one of them as well. I don't remember the whole list. I took out encumber when I was doing it because nobody knows what encumber means.
I was wondering, that's the one that's like, I don't even know. I
That's
guess they
the
mean just
really
make it
weird-
harder to access is I guess their point, but
I don't know what it means.
I
but-
can't
and
remember.
Do we
I
want
spent
to
ages
go
looking
into
up. I
this?
don't remember what it means. Which is this the right one?
so I think
Is
we're saying for
encumber an
MVP, just change the language so it's right on the checklist. I think
I would
that,
guess,
oh no, go ahead, Kate. If
I
you,
was gonna say,
you
I
have
feel
the
like
best.
encumbering would be like, I don't know, like taking out a breeding contract on the pet, like something that restricts your
Yeah,
giving somebody else an interest in it, using the pet as security for a loan. I don't know.
I was
Like,
gonna
that's
say
what I
there's no
think
way
of
to
as
put a lien on a
encumbering.
pet.
Yeah, like I don't know if you. I mean, pets can be valuable. I guess you could do that with like horses and stuff, right?
yeah. Or
Probably be
any,
a
like
security
you're saying,
interest.
any breeding animal, you could.
Yeah, yeah, because like in
Consider
breeding
the pet.
contracts, the animal is the security, usually. I think, or is part of the security.
Like
Yeah.
it's do anything that would involve a lien.
Yeah, I'm just
Yep.
having flashbacks to this case I had with the breeding contract. Like pit bulls, they were valuable.
Yeah.
Like the most valuable asset they had was these dogs.
What if we said borrow money against or something like that?
Is this more of a language discussion that we might have
Probably.
beyond this?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think the
You
thing
could copy
is
the
that
exact thing for now, probably.
Yeah.
this whole question, Derek's question, I think we can keep as is, but change the language, and that, for MVP, that should fix it. I
And
think
just
so.
make an
Okay.
issue for what Quentin described.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So I think the idea would be there, you say, what protections do you want? Check for each protection, and then show choices about who you want to, which pets to protect.
Well,
Unless there's only one pet, and then you
well,
should,
right, but the thing,
the answer
Quentin,
there.
is that I don't know that you're saying which protections, because the form only asks you all of these protections or none of these protections. So
you're
I
right.
think-
I'm saying
you
the
don't
two
need to go
empty
protection
spaces. Protection or own is what I should have said.
Okay, gotcha. All right,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
So you say, do you want to have them protected? Do you want to take ownership of them? Those would be parallel checkboxes to this. And then you would show this if there's more than one pet. Something
Wow,
like
that could be confusing. Okay, we'll make an issue of it.
Maybe
'cause I
too
think it's
confusing?
also confusing for the user about.
Well,
One-
let's make an issue and then in the future, we'll just see what it
Yeah,
looks like
yeah,
because we might as well take
yeah.
a look. So,
Definitely.
okay.
We've
No.
gone an hour too now, so sorry. Let's go back to your form.
All right.
We're almost at the end, right, Derek, anyway? Okay, 'cause this is
Um,
the last thing you asked for. I
I'd
think.
love if the answer was no. That would be hilarious.
For which,
Whatever.
I mean, that is an option if we wanted to. Oh, what if there were like a ton more things to the form?
Yes, if it were not near the end, it'd be like,
No,
all
this
right.
is, yeah, we got 75 more questions to go.
So after this, this is where the user gets to put in like their reasons for requesting the pet protection order. I try and say here, like, just provide a brief statement as to why. You'll have an opportunity to give a full explanation at the hearing.
Can we do this for MVP, is make that, I mean, we would change the language, but make that first sentence conditional. So depending on what you're asking for, it's either requesting protections or requesting custody, do you see what I mean? So you're asking for one or the other or both. Make that sentence conditional on the previous screen, the answers to the previous screen.
I think-
Are you following what I'm saying, Derek?
Yes,
Okay, can we do that for MVP?
I think so.
I'm all about making language conditional.
And then a tip for translation down the line is make the whole sentence conditional, which
Yeah.
you might already have remembered.
This is a bit of a language thing, but I don't think the first paragraph, maybe you just said this, I'm sorry. I don't think the first paragraph in the sub question is really necessary. Right.
This came up in the last demo of this, is that I forget who was doing the last demo, but I'll just say you all had said that there should be something that it says to the user that this just needs to be a brief statement, because the piece on the form is small to begin with, and that it's really like, you know, they don't want to go through the whole thing on this form.
I guess it
but-
is more than a language thing, but I would say in one sentence, give something short here, you will have the opportunity, you will be able to tell the judge more late at the hearing.
Oh, so you can
Right,
take
so
out
so
that-
instead of like 2 paragraphs, it's just 2
just condense
sentences.
it into one.
I do get
But
nervous
that's a
about.
language thing. That's more of a
I
language
get well.
thing.
I get
Yeah.
nervous about suggesting that people will get that the judge will listen to someone too much in person at a hearing,
Mhm.
because they like don't really always,
Yeah.
you know, depending on their mood.
Should we just
And
let
just,
them
like,
tell the whole story and do an
From
addendum?
from the lawyer's perspective, when somebody comes in and they're like, my 209A got denied, my whatever got denied, it's so much better when stuff's in writing, because like you just can't guarantee that a pro se person's going to be able to get what they need on the record.
Okay.
Are
So-
we?
You know, people lose it at hearings and can't like say anything.
um,
Writing is just so much more secure,
Sorry,
which I
Kate,
know
can
might
we-
require an addendum, but
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. Can we? Do you want to definitely not have an addendum?
I think an addendum's a good idea.
Okay,
Um,
that's what I'm thinking too, because
For
the
MVP,
same thing is
remember,
the
this is
burden to
MVP.
try and you have an opportunity in court where your knees are shaking, you can't think straight, you're sweating. You know, I think the other thing is that this is why we help people build these statements and affidavits.
right.
So-
This is your sure opportunity to get something on the
Right.
record.
So if we
You
are
don't,
allowed to
it's
have
not,
an
nothing
addendum-
is sure at a hearing.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm just,
yeah.
I'm gonna say real quick, I think this sounds like MVP, but I also just want to make sure to ask, is it MVP?
I think so.
I'm
yeah.
gonna say yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
I mean,
another
'cause
one.
the addendum stuff, the code is generally there, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a huge burden.
And it's a safety
there's
issue.
examples, yeah.
Just remember it's a safety issue, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Pets are important to people.
Yeah,
40% of survivors wouldn't leave in Maine.
I'm sure Quentin doing housing has like had clients who have you had clients where that's like a big issue in the housing stuff?
Mhm.
Actually, I haven't. It was interesting.
I just remember I shared an office with somebody who was a housing lawyer at one point, and like that was all he talked to the client about was like, you're going to be homeless if you won't like give
Get
the
rid of your
dog to a
pet.
friend.
Yeah.
Maybe just geography was the thing there. I'm
Yeah.
not sure, because I know the family law unit, you have a much bigger service area, and you were like mostly in the housing court in Boston. Maybe there are fewer pets. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
okay,
Good on the screen.
yep.
I got evicted from college, my college housing because of
Hearing
my
date.
cat.
Okay, so
Um,
so what happens? Yeah,
So here, if they say they've already obtained a hearing date, then the next question is going to ask them to input the city, the date and the time of the hearing.
Mhm.
Language, but can we get rid of the word obtained?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
done.
already
there's
have
a
a hearing
bunch. I
date.
think there's a lot of language there.
Yeah.
It's all right. We'll work on language.
Yeah.
I'll have a session with Derek.
I just saw that and it was quick. Caroline will deal with it.
Okay.
Is
This
city?
is where our style guide would come in handy.
Yeah, or
I
like
mean,
a style
yeah,
guide
we'll link
checklist.
you
You
to the
mean?
style guide for sure. Yeah.
I just realized we didn't have one. It's a tangent again, sorry. But about compound questions in the style guide. So I added one. But Caroline, if you have a chance to look at it and come up with
Oh, I
more
thought I
examples or
had
add
something
stuff,
in there, but maybe, yeah, okay.
and I just didn't catch it.
And also, this is another language thing, Derek, is just try to use the verb need all the time. Never want, always need
Okay.
for your user, because when you go to court, it's more than want.
Yeah.
I have to have.
Didn't know that. Is that in the
Uh,
style guide?
I'm adding it now because I have
I
it open
think
already.
so. I had a big discussion, multi-attorney informed discussion, including Laura Gal on this.
Wow.
We talked a lot
Laura
about
said it, I
but
believe it.
Yeah.
It didn't
Is
make it into
the-
the style guide, but it's now there now.
Okay. Now it's in
Um,
the style guide. Very good.
Where can I find a link to the style guide? I think that might be a helpful like onboarding thing.
I can get you a link. I already have the.
It's in a fetal
folder.
state right now, Derek, but
Okay.
it does exist.
All right.
One of our goals is to turn it into a checklist too, which I think will be really
Hmm.
great. We just talked about that on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. So they have so if they get the hearing date, then the next screen they would put that in. If they don't have the hearing date, then it skips that question. And either way, it ends up here asking for the date that they're working on the forms. And this is a basic question.
Yeah.
Can we go back? Is this hearing city? Is that determined from the court they filed in?
I would presume that it would be, although I don't know how it works with like
Is this a
I mean,
basic
I-
question?
No,
this
but it's
one is not a
already.
basic question.
They have told us what court they're in, right?
Right.
Kate, is this here? What says hearing city? Is that just meaning the court?
Yeah.
And do we need to say
know
the
that.
city that the court's in, or just the name of the court?
Although, can you remind me, does the court selector distinguish between like Lawrence and Salem if they do Essex?
I think we have
like
an open
probate?
issue for that. That we have some specific probate family courts, and some we have combined into just the county level, because it was how Mass.gov listed them.
Yeah. So
Okay, just
I
leave
think
it for
that
the city
is a
for now,
judgment
then.
call for you, depending on what you know about how well that thing or how much that
We
thing
might-
can pick the city.
We might want
Uh,
to. Okay.
Leave it a city for now, I think. And then I have an open issue for making the probate family course more specific. So it's still open. Hopefully we can get someone to
Is
work on it.
If you're filing this, would you in what circumstances would you already have a hearing scheduled for this form?
You filed your ex parte restraining order. You got a 10-day date,
On the 10
and you're filing this between your ex parte and your 10-day date.
So you could include this in.
Yeah, you're
another
tacking this
hearing.
onto your 10-day
Okay, so
date.
it's not a hearing just for this.
Should we, for the hearing details, I think we need a way of letting people specify that it's like Zoom or telephonic too.
Hmm.
Because I mean, that's here to stay. I was
But
like,
we're on-
before I was
we're
just
on the
ignoring
form.
that, but that's
Yeah.
not going anywhere.
That's awesome. In some ways.
Well, like my wife, we just had a
why are
5-minute
we-
court hearing this
Kate,
morning.
why
It's
are,
like,
I mean,
glad
is
you
that
didn't try to
because
do
you
it
think
extra
that's gonna
for it.
go on the form eventually, whether it's?
I mean,
tele-
yeah, if you're giving notice of how the hearing is, I think you would put, instead of saying hearing city, you're saying
Oh, I see what you're,
Zoom, you're saying Zoom number, phone number.
all right, so we're asking this question for notice. That's why we're asking the question.
Yeah.
Right, so you already know what the court, you know what you may already know what the court is. We've already been asked about the court, right?
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
we know what the court is already.
So, I'm guessing this is not MVP, as if you know what the court is, you could have there's a list you already have in the description, the list of cities. But I think, Kate, you're right about adding whether it's Zoom or whether it's remote,
And
whether it's
I mean,
telephone,
Or
Um,
Zoom.
it seems
video,
MVP, but
or
is it
in
MVP?
person, right? So
Yeah, I mean, the hearings are by Zoom now. You
Yeah,
you
good.
can't give inadequate. You don't want people saying it's in person when it's not,
right,
saying it's in
yeah.
Salem when it's by phone.
right.
So,
So-
my question for that then is this question ties exactly to what's in on the form, because the form itself says notice of hearing, this motion will be heard at blank court located at blank city on blank day at blank time. So there's not really unless the clerk is going to write in or stamp the number of the Zoom call or something like that on the motion.
Yeah.
We might want to add something in basic questions for hearing as well to just deal with this, because the form that I'm filling out, right, that I'm working on right now for the MVP demo is also has a hearing date question. And I thought I remembered one other form, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
I'll add that issue now.
For example, this is like what they're doing for Zoom notices. Like they are just sticking on like event telephonic. Is that flipped for you or just me? Telephonic.
It's
I
for
can-
you.
And yeah, they give you that. That's like a notice.
So you'd have like a question like in here that said, is it telephonic or is it in a court? And then if it's in a court, then you have the question about hearing city.
Yeah.
That's
Nope.
And you could, and I would think that if you've already picked the court earlier in the interview, the hearing city, you can have a drop down. I'm hoping you could have a drop down, maybe not. Maybe that's, I mean, that's probably
and
definitely.
what do you think?
Well, I think if we come up with the drop down, we probably want to just fix the court list, but I don't know how many courts we're missing for sure. I know there are a handful where there's 2 probate and family courts in one county that we already have listed. I don't know why Mass.gov chose to list some as separate and some as combined, but that's what they did.
Sure.
So I don't know how to get the full list either, but Kate, you gave us some on the issue already. So I guess we just have to keep revising it and making it better. But adding a new session is just like copying and pasting a block of JSON. So if we can make a list of cities, we could just fix the court selector.
And also this thing is that, but what we could do for now is say, Zoom, telephonic, or in person, and then only have hearing city show up if it's in person,
Oh,
right?
good point.
The other thing that might, Kate, can you do this? Because you're if you know when the hearing is and it's a Zoom or a telephonic, you're gonna like you just showed us. You wouldn't, if it's Zoom, you would know it's Zoom, and you'd have that. Presumably, you'd have that information. And I think it's a mistake to ask people to type in the URL of the Zoom
I don't
hearing.
think we need to do that. I think I would just, you know, I just would want something on there to put the defendant on notice that they don't need to show
Yeah.
up at the court.
No, but what I'm
Because then the
wondering.
defendant can contact the court to get it too.
Yeah, okay, but the question is, if it's Zoom or telephonic, would it make sense? Again, this might be post MVP. I don't know if we could do it. Is, Quentin's working on this attachment, whether the plaintiff can take a picture of the hearing notice and upload that to the defendant. I mean, to the form, so the defendant
Is
gets.
it, I think-
That might be post MVP.
that
yeah.
might be post MV.
But I think what we could do is just like one extra question that's like, yeah, is this, or maybe 2, is this Zoom or telephonic? And then on the form where you would put hearing city, you just put Zoom or telephone.
Right, but
And then the
Kate, we don't need
defendant-
to, I don't think we need one more question. We need another field.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Mark, you okay with that?
Well, I mean, it is,
Derek, sorry.
That's okay.
I think it is just one more question, because if they answer this, it's Zoom or telephonic, then that is what will be filled in.
Yeah, I
And
don't
if
think you
they
need
answer
another
it's a-
question. It's hearing details. Is your
Oh,
hearing,
another field on this page. Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry, I thought you meant a text field. Okay,
no,
I
no.
apologize. Carry on.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's what we don't have anything to say about the date or the time.
Right.
Time might be oh, I see. You don't have AM or PM. Right.
Nope, I
Okay.
can have whatever I wanted.
Okay. Well, all right. I don't know if it's MVP, but it might be helpful to have AM or PM, because sometimes people write like, I guess like
could
it's
use
never
the
going to be
time.
like, it's
Don't
never
we-
going to
don't
be
we have a
like
time
6
data
AM
field?
or 6
Isn't there-
PM or 7
There
AM.
is. There's a time.
Time,
I
date,
believe
time, and,
Okay.
there
data
is.
type.
It might only be combined, which would be a little more confusing. Let me just check.
It is combined.
It's not a separate
has-
one. Okay.
Oh, well, I mean, it's like the time and AM and PM.
Well,
Right.
that's okay.
That's what you wanted, right?
Yeah, but I don't know what you meant combined then.
Date.
You said
Time
date
is-
time, so I was, yeah, that's why I was,
Oh, no,
I was
no,
worrying
it's-
it was
it's-
combined
there's a
date
time
and
one
time.
by itself. There is a time one by itself.
Yeah, it makes sense to use that field then.
Yeah, just use data type time, Derek.
Okay. Okay, signature date, basic question. And then this is the first preview before signing. So I wrote code. So whichever court you pick, it knows how to like check off which box at the top. Picks the division, docket number, plaintiff defendant. I mean, this piece is always going to be checked.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it lists each pet. So name of the pet, the breed, owned by whoever, next pet, owners,
Oh, yeah. Right.
owners.
And how do you handle overflow for that?
I don't have anything to handle overflow yet. That's one of the issues that's still outstanding.
Okay.
I need to
Would this
figure
be an
out.
addendum, Kate?
Where? Here?
Mm-hmm.
And would it just be like see addendum and then, or would it have some of the text in here?
Yeah, I guess it would be an addendum. Hopefully, I mean, it fits a lot.
Yeah.
Does.
Can I suggest, oh, well, I don't know. I guess you have to really list all this information each time.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have a condensed version of the list if it's close to the limit. And another thing, oh, no, it won't work for this. Never mind. Can we scroll down a little bit?
Yep.
I just am wondering, sometimes with a form like this, like I would want to just adjust where things go a little bit to make more room for fields. But probably it's the support of this request is the one that needs the most room. So I wouldn't give more room to the list of pets before I gave room to that field. Unless we're like thinking we never want the list of pets to overflow, but we're okay with this almost always being an addendum for the reason, which actually makes sense to me now that I said that out loud. Do you get what I mean, Derek? Like you could just move the fields down a little bit so there's more room for the pet name, so it's less likely to overflow.
Okay.
And then we could also adjust, and you'd get rid of that line there, right? That would give you a whole extra row if you got rid of that horizontal rule on the page. Maybe you can shorten this too. The way that the description's written. Could you just, would it be clear if you just had like in parentheses the name of the owners as a comma separated list?
Yeah, I mean, Kate, when you're filling this out, how would you normally?
I mean, this isn't a super common form. I think what you have is fine.
Okay. Because here we have 3 pets, and just having the names of the defendant and the other party takes up so much room.
Yeah.
But maybe you're not likely to go above this. At some point, you're really not asking for something that should be in a DV protective order, right? If you're asking for a custody of 10 pets, well.
Well, I mean, the thing is,
It's
if
not
you
an
need
emergency.
an addendum, you need an addendum. You know,
Yeah.
you use them all the time, but when there is a purpose for them, and if you have 100 cats or whatever, I mean, you're lucky if you
And-
remember them all.
And if you, sorry, just a technical question. If there is an addendum, should it just say, see the addendum and all the text will be in the addendum, or should some of the text be here, or how does that work?
I think it would overflow into the addendum.
Yeah.
Okay. But you need room at the end for the text, see addendum.
The addendum, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume the same for the reason for the request.
Yeah.
Even really the list of care and
Yeah.
list of possession. Because in theory, that's not as verbose, but still, if you got to 15 pets, it wouldn't fit there. Yeah, I think you're right. I was trying to decide if it would be common to run into the character limit, and now that I think about it, it's probably not. So it's fine to just have it overflow and not change anything about how the lists work.
Yeah, I don't think it's common.
It's a lot of pets.
And a lot of owners too, right? Because
Yeah.
maybe. Could you just use first names? No, maybe
I
not.
mean, you could use
Yeah.
me and defendant.
Yeah,
Me seems good.
Would that be okay with the court?
yeah,
Okay.
you could do that.
I mean, it's a first, this whole thing's in the first
Right, 'cause
person.
you see also it says petitioner, respondent, or minor child. So you could say Rex, a
Petitioner.
cat owned by defend. Well, you would say, in this case, you would say respondent or defend, you would say,
So Derek,
I-
you put your name as the petitioner, right? So
Yep.
owned by petitioner, owned by respondent.
but Kate's saying you could say owned by me.
I
So,
think I mean, the whole thing's written in the first person, like
right,
I think me is fine if you want to cut characters.
I mean,
Owned by me.
it's a little bit more complex to code. So I think for MVP, just the addenda and not messing with the names and stuff might just be easier.
yeah, for MVP, we could do that, but yeah, for stage 1B or whatever it was we were gonna do, we were talking about
Version
yesterday.
2, yeah.
1.5. Well, we're really past 1.5. This is definitely
Yeah,
past the
yeah.
stage we're now saying we should have released stuff.
Mhm.
Well, but remember, it also involves safety. So it's not, release is not always at PDF plus or whatever.
Well, why don't we say addendum for all of these for now? So we can get it out there and then we can do some big, larger and smaller adjustments to it.
Okay. I say okay. It's not me doing it. Sorry.
Okay, so there's that. And then the second page, it'll check off whether petitioners obtain the hearing or whether they want the court to schedule it. This is a problem I'm noticing. This form has like very tiny fields, especially for the names and for the court. If you're in a Boston Municipal Court, that's going to get cut off in this field here. And I didn't want to like make the text size smaller. So I don't know if this is ultimately something where I need to create like a Microsoft Word version of the motion.
Would it be okay to just move the field like above? So there's room in the line above, Kate?
I mean, even just moving court over an inch would give you some space.
Yeah.
The word court.
Over to the,
Just move
To the right.
side, to the
Yeah.
right. All the
But I
way.
also, this is such a common issue though too. Like I
Yeah,
need to
can-
shorten the name for BMCs.
Yeah, can it be shortened to BMC Central?
Okay. This, I
We
mean,
have could the court class have a like shortened name and then it has a property or a property that's called shortened name?
That's what I'm suggesting. Yeah, I think
Oh,
that's a
I
good
see.
idea.
I see.
I mean, we'll have to figure out how to expose it because there's some places that rely on the exact name matching. So we'll have to
Yeah.
figure out how to let people use it. But for forms like this, you need a short version sometimes. So
okay.
it could just be an
Yeah.
extra thing people access would be a solution.
Yeah, exactly.
The way this is being filled specifically is that like it's just pulling the court name. So the full thing of this was Central Division, Boston Municipal Court. And I
Right.
wrote the code to cut the court part off of each one. So this would say like Quincy District because it says court right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So also, I don't know if maybe the solution to that is not cut the court part off and just cut this out
Just
of,
delete court. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
just extend the field.
Oh,
Oh, then
that's
it would
true.
fit pretty much every name in that case.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Mm.
With a comma at the end. Remember the
With a
comma.
comment at the end.
I say keep out the comma so it won't look as weird with the comma being an inch away from the name of the court.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought Michelle was saying have the comma in the code rather than having the comma in the PDF.
That's a good way to fix
Yeah.
it too. You're right.
Yeah.
Then it will be in the right spot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a perfect solution. That way you
Yeah.
just delete court from the form and then you've got it because they're all called court.
I'll still make that issue for short names because there's a lot of places it
Yeah.
can be handled,
Like
but I think for this
here-
form you won't need it.
Yeah. Well, here we're lucky with this that there's room at the end, but other times it appears in not such convenient places, but we still have the problem with names. So what I was saying about like the name fields are very small, he was saying.
Should I just do the same thing here?
Oh.
Delete where it says name in parentheses and extend the field?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is meant to help someone who's writing it out by hand, right?
Right.
Like the person reading this doesn't need the name annotation there.
Right.
Right.
The judge doesn't care that it
That's
says
an
name.
excellent solution, Derek, for all of
Yeah,
other forms as
great
well.
thought.
Okay. Right, and that's that with the form. So for me, just to circle back, I'll create a way to do like an overflow addendum for all these fields.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, so next,
And for the names, just kidding. That's the solution to all names and court names, the addendum.
So we found the longest, Mariah and I found the longest proper name.
For
Oh,
a
you
court.
saw that, didn't you,
It
Michelle?
was, yeah, you showed it to me.
German name like Wolfenspitzer Burgerstein or something. Like that.
It was a last name, just to
It
be
was a
clear.
last name, yeah.
signed, and then that's the end. I don't have the code in yet to submit to court, mostly because I'm afraid I would click something and spam a clerk with nonsense.
Oh, if you're on the dev server, it won't. It
It
uses
won't.
a
Okay.
fake. It uses a fake email.
Okay,
Don't
good
we
to know.
have to, do we have to wait for approval from the court before we add that anyway?
We do, yeah. So
Sure. Yeah.
there's some new code that makes it like you just change one variable and it turns it on and off.
Okay,
So I will. It's like, is it written down somewhere? Not really yet, but I can give it to you, and then this is pretty much ready to go. I think we identified the things to fix in the PDF.
Mhm.
Sounds like we really need the addendum before we can release it too.
and we
Okay.
are gonna do those check boxes. We're gonna change, I have to do language and we're gonna do the check boxes for the owners, right?
That's right.
And we can take out that, and there was that one, that extra screen. I think in the,
It was the one asking if you had
want them
pets.
to be included, yeah. So we need to think about how we're gonna do that, but I think that's a language issue.
Okay.
All right.
Cool. Well, I do have like a code specific question. I don't know if now is a good time, but
Might as well, you've got them.
Sure. I guess I'll
Why-
stop.
I'm gonna go then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Kate,
Kate.
thank
Yes,
I
thanks
just
for
have a
taking
lot
all
to
this.
do.
Yep.
All right, bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Should I stop the recording or keep it because people might be
Keep
interested?
it
in
if
the
he's
code?
got a code.
Keep it, because he can
Okay.
refer back to it, right?
That's true too.
Yeah. If I can find. Okay. This is something that I inherited from Alex, but in the control block of the code, it asks for like the plaintiffs, defendants, petitioners, respondents, and then petitioners again. Is this normal, or should I be kicking it just down to plaintiffs and defendants?
I don't really know why they're on
I
here that
don't
way,
think
but
they're being used anywhere, are they?
I
you can delete those probably. Do you have,
guess we're
so you don't
using-
have skip
Oh,
undefined
there.
turn on, so
But you don't need to, you don't need to, I mean, the code goes into PDF matching. You don't need to say that it, that make it.
I mean, you
or
can
do-
say petitioners 0 equals plaintiffs 0 and be done with it, right?
Yeah,
Then you can't
It's
later
already-
ask for petitioner, like you can't use petitioner anywhere else in your code, but
so we already have user role equals plaintiff, so that sets both the user to both the petitioner and plaintiff.
okay.
So you don't even have to do that. And you asked for the name of the person? No, that's the first time you asked for it. So yeah, you could just replace it with plaintiffs and defendants.
Okay, so just
Um,
I guess I
and if
deleted it earlier. And
just tried it.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what that is? That comes from the way that the wizard worked. I don't think it has duplicates anymore, but at one point it would just, as many times as the names appear on the form, it would add it to that list. I think now I have it removed duplicates.
okay,
oh, so, and you're gonna work with Michelle to get rid of these extra questions,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the person business thing.
You should
Oh.
schedule that today is probably not the best day for that. have a
Okay.
few kind of things going on, but let's schedule a different time.
Okay. Let me see. I wrote down. Nope, that was my only question. Oh, actually, the last one. Do I need to be concerned about like updating the interview metadata? Because another
No.
thing.
No, you don't
No,
need to.
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing that is used in your other code is the allowed courts.
Right. Okay.
Everything else isn't used.
Okay. Cool. That
You could delete
was-
it if it's confusing. You could delete, don't get rid of it, but just make it an empty list for all the field names. You can. In new versions of the wizard, we don't generate that anymore. It was kind of like, hey, maybe we'll need this someday, and we didn't.
Mm,
So what you would do is like starting on line 134, delete all of those lines that have brackets inside. Yeah. Wait, not quite that high up to the beginning of the fields. So make it so that fields on line 50 something. I can't remember to see it anymore.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and do it inside each one. So fields, make it an empty bracket, square bracket. So delete all of line 55. You have a stray comma in there, so delete that too. Yeah, it'll just be an empty bracket. And then the list above, you can do the same thing. Delete the curly bracket stuff, but keep the square bracket so it's an empty list. Oh, one thing you might have to change. Let's look. Is your code block using mark unfilled fields empty?
I think it is.
just search mark underscore unfilled.
That was,
Oh, there we go.
that uses that list of fields. So you can delete that.
It may lead to some unexpected behavior now, but
And I think though, the way to basically replace what that did, but a little safer, is to set skip undefined true on the attachment block, but be really careful, but do some tests to make sure there's some fields that aren't left empty unintentionally. And if you run into that, we'll solve those problems together.
Okay.
But let's go for now. Go ahead and turn on skip undefined.
You said I'm doing that in the attachment block.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's skip space undefined colon true. And on both the attachment preview and the, this one has two attachments, right?
Yeah.
Capital T for true. Not totally critical, but
Good habit.
yeah. DocAssemble will work around that if you use the wrong capitalization.
but not always, like not in Python code and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's best to get in the habit, I think. Personal opinion.
Okay, so this should work. What you might find is some fields are left empty that shouldn't be.
Okay.
If you want, I can say like the basic solution is make sure you reference that code in the logic of your interview order block.
Okay.
And if you reference those variables there, then it won't, skip undefined will do what it needs to do
Okay.
correctly.
No. Not inside an if statement. You have to reference it, or if it's an if statement, then there's an else that makes sure that it is defined. So like,
No, because that's what leaving it skip undefined will handle. So you really only have to
I see.
define it if it's supposed to be in the form.
okay, that's fair.
Yeah, it's tricky because it's hard to, you in the interview order block, if you're setting stuff, that can cause problems that you don't anticipate, especially if you're at later ad review screens. Because that runs every time. So I don't usually recommend that.
Okay.
Okay, this was a marathon session. Good job, Derek.
Thanks.
Some really
Yeah,
nice
good
stuff
job,
in
everyone.
there and some good stuff figuring out a lot of the code by yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help either.
Okay. All right. So Michelle and Caroline, I'll reach out to both of you separately to set up some
Sure.
more.
I'll
Sounds
do,
great.
I think it's always best to do language last. So you meet with Michelle first and then meet with me, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay,
All
I
right.
mean, yeah. All right. Cool.
Okay,
Thank
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
bye-bye.
job.
Bye.
Nice
Bye.
job, Mark, Derek.
Nice
Thank you.
job. Yeah. Bye.